In the last video, we set up our buttons and our signals. And in this one, we're actually going to write the code to get our buttons to work. So the first thing I want to get working is when we press a button, update the display and show us the actual buttons that they're pressing. So I'm going to come into the scripts and I'm going to need a reference to that display. So I'm going to use an onReady var. I'll just call it display. It's going to be of type label, and I'll make it equal to the actual display label that we have here. And we can drag and drop it in. This is one way to do it. I'll undo that. Another way, and the way I prefer to do it, is hit the $sign. And this will give me a list of all of the different nodes I have in here. And then I can just start typing it out. So LBL, and I've only got the one. So I can just hit enter. The problem with dragging and dropping is sometimes you miss it. It's on another line. So now that I have that ready, I'm going to go and create our ready function. So func underscore ready. We're going to return void. And all I want to do is make sure that when my scene first starts up, I set the label, it's text. Right now we have it set to be 888. We could come in here and set it to 0. But in the script itself, I want to make sure that every time I run this, it starts at 0. So I'll just come in and say label.txt. I'm sorry, I meant display.text is equal to, and it has to be a string, so I'll just pass in 0. And with GD script, I prefer double quotes. I'll leave the 2 lines. And if we go and run this, it should start off being a 0. There we go. So let's work on our number pressed. When we press it, instead of just printing out down to the bottom here, I want to go ahead and print it up into the display as well. So I'll leave that print there for now, just so I have that little debug that we can see down here of what number was pressed. And I'm just going to say display.text is equal to, and then we do have to convert the number that's being passed in, because we're being passed an int. We have to convert it to a string. Let's just save that off. I'm going to run it. And as we click the buttons, they show up, but it keeps changing. We want to add to it. So to do that, all we have to do is come down here, and instead of saying whatever number we're passed in, let's assign it to the text. We can append it to the text. So I'm going to save it. I'll hit play again. And now when I click a button, it's adding it in, but we start off with that 0 at the beginning. When I first hit a button, I don't want that 0 to be there. If it's a 0, get rid of the 0 and just start off with the numbers that we have. So we're going to come back in. We'll make another change. We're going to say if display text, if I spell it right, if it is currently equal to, actually let's do not equals. If it's not equal to 0, then we'll go ahead and append on whatever number we're passed in. But if it is equal to 0, then I'm just going to say put the display text to be equal to the number passed in converted to a string. So let's try this out. This should work exactly like we want. So if it starts off at a 0 and we hit a number, there we go. It switches for us. And that is all we need for this function. Just to keep things a little bit tidier up here, I'm going to shrink down the functions as we're not working on them anymore. So the code is still there, and just I'm hiding it so it's less distracting, I find. So the next one we're going to work on is when we press one of the symbols. We're passing in a string. For this one, we want to know what string was passed in. And for this, we'll use match. And we're going to go off the symbol that was passed. So we could start off, let's start off with the simple ones. Let's do the plus. I want to perform some sort of math. For now, well, we'll go ahead and we'll make this function. I'm going to come down here real quick. So right now, I just kind of want to store the symbol that's passed in. And then when we hit the equals button, we're going to perform some sort of mathematical operation. So I'm going to create a function called do math. It won't take anything. And for now, I'm just going to say pass. But for up here, we'll create a variable called, I like to put them below the onReady. It really doesn't matter, but I'm still going to put them below the onReady. I will call this symbol. Actually, we're already using that one. So let's do last symbol. And this will be the last symbol that we entered. And I'm going to start this off just being an empty string. And then we'll come down here. When we hit that plus button, we're going to say last symbol is equal to the symbol that's being passed in. And then we're also going to call the do math. Let's take our plus. I'm going to copy it. And let's do subtraction next. So again, do math. We'll copy one more time. This time we're going to look for multiplication. Division. Now you might be like, hey, well, wait a minute. We're calling the same thing over and over again. Why don't we just move this maybe outside of the match block so we don't have to keep repeating these steps? And the answer is because some of these non-mathematical operations, we want to make sure that we're going to be calling this do math, but we don't want to do it when we hit stuff like, like the delete key and, all the others aren't actual mathematical operations. And let's go ahead and do, let's do the equals one next. And when we hit equals, I want to make sure that I clear out the last symbol. All right, so I'm going to take the symbol. We already know what we're pressing. I'm going to come all the way to the bottom here, paste it in, and I'm going to look at the last symbol now. We'll save this off. Let's give it a run. Make sure everything's running right. So if I start hitting numbers and I hit any of the mathematical operators that we have defined here, so I'll hit plus. We can see the plus gets here. That's the last symbol. Then I start hitting more numbers. Then I can hit some more symbols. The way we should have this working is as we hit numbers and then we hit that mathematical operation, it should clear this out and store it somewhere and start it back at 0. So for that, I'm going to create another variable up the top here. And I'm just going to call it total for now. And I will start that off at 0. I'm going to come down to our do math. And in here, we're going to create a new variable called var. And we want to be able to grab what the text that's shown on the display. So I'm just going to call this n. And it's equal to the display text. But remember, this is a string. So what we have to do is convert this to an int so we can actually do math with it. So this is the integer version of whatever is displayed on the screen itself. And then I'm going to look at the last symbol that was entered. Remember, we start off empty. So I could say match. So we'll go off that last symbol. And I'm just going to do the empty one for now. I'll say that the total that we just made, I want to make it equal to n. And then at the very end here, I want to print that out. So I'll just say total plus, actually we'll just say total is a string. There we go. We'll print that out. We'll hit run again. And if I were to do 3, as soon as I hit any symbol, we can see that total gets added to the 3. And we need one more line where we go ahead and make this a 0 again. So I'll add this down here as well because I can't think of any mathematical operation that we're going to perform where we won't want to 0 that out. So I'm just going to come above the print and just say display. One of these days I'll spell it right. Dot text is equal to 0. And one more quick test. So we hit play. We'll hit 5 plus. All right, 5. Then we can hit plus again. And it should just keep, regardless of the one we hit, zeroing out. So that's great. Now we already have the last symbol being assigned based on what we've clicked up here. So I'm going to come down here and add all these operations on what we're supposed to do. Let's keep this really simple for you. I'm going to start with the plus. And if we hit plus, we want to take the total and we're going to add to it. So we'll add n. If we hit subtraction, let's subtract from the total. If we hit multiplication, we're going to take what's stored in the multiplication and we'll multiply it by n. And while I'm not set up to do floats, we're still going to set up the division. And if I save this off, we'll give it a run. 3 plus 6 equals, and we got a total of 9. So all we really have to do is make that display up at the top. But we can see that we have our math working now. So I'm going to stop it. I'm going to come back up here and finish off all of our other strings that will be passed in. So I've set the last symbol. Another thing we want to do when we hit the equals is make sure that we take that display.txt, make it equal to the string version of whatever it is that we have stored in total. And remember, total will be updated as soon as we call the math part. So again, one more test. 3 plus 6 equals 9. Subtract 9 equals 0. Plus 1 equals 1 times 3. 3, let's do another times 2. 6 divided by 3, back to 2. All right, that's all working good. So we got the 4 basic operations working. Let's take a look at the rest of them though. So I'm going to come take a look here. Let's start off with the first one. Let's do this plus minus. So the symbol that we're passing in for this, if we take a look at our signal, if you forget, edit, and we're passing in a PM. So in my code down here, I'm going to look for the string of PM. And whoops, let's bring that back up here. We'll come down. Really, all I want to do is take whatever is currently being displayed up top in the text, the display text, and I'm just going to switch the symbol. So if it's a negative, I want to make it positive. If it's a positive, I want to make it negative. And the easy way to do that is take whatever's there, multiply it by -1, then redisplay it. So I'll just say var n. It's going to equal to the int version of whatever we have in the display.txt. Then I'm going to multiply it by -1. and then take the display.txt and make it equal to the string version of n. Now we could have did this in one line, but I'm going to do it in two. And I've got my semicolon or my colon in the wrong spot. So let's try this out. Again, I'm going to try them out after each button. Maybe I'll leave a couple for you to try. So 2, then the plus minus. So times 3, we get -6. What if we multiply it by -2? So the negative's not working if it's a 0. That is something to keep in mind. But it does work as long as the numbers themselves are negative. Next, let's do that clear entry. So yeah, we'll do delete and clear entry and AC. Let's get those ones done. I'm going to do all 3 at once before the test, that is. So I'll come down here. I've got del for delete. I'm going to check to see if my display text, if its length is greater than 1. So if it's just a 0 up there, we don't want to delete that. But if for some reason we have any other number after that 0 that we've put there, we want to delete that. So essentially we need at least 2 digits to delete. I'll say display text is equal to, and then to get rid of a character, I'm going to use this function called left. And all we have to do is pass in the string that we want, in this case, the display text, dot length. So we're going to get the length of it minus 1. So it's going to take display text minus the last character and reassign it back into display text. So let's take a look at this. I said I was going to actually do all 3 at the same time, but I want to show that. Actually, we never reassigned it. I'm sorry. Actually, we are reassigning it. So if I hit 56, hit delete, we get rid of the 6. If we hit delete more, we can't get rid of the 5. We'll have to hit clear entry or all clear. There is one other thing though, actually. I guess what we could do is if it is not greater than 1, just put a 0 there. We can do that with an else. And we'll set the display text to be equal to string 0. Now when we run it, if we only have one number, we hit delete, it just goes to 0. I think it's a better workaround. So we'll do clear entry next. I believe that's the next one. So for clear entry, all we want to do is just clear whatever they have up here and set it back to 0. So I'm going to come into here. I did it as CE. This is the string we get. And this one's pretty easy. Display.text is equal to, there we go. And again, we're going to test. And I hit clear entry, back to 0. And the last one we have is all clear, which I have as AC. Now for this one, we want to be able to clear this text. We want to be able to clear the values that we're saving inside of last symbol. And we also want to be able to zero out any totals that we might have saved. So there's 3 things we got to do in this one. I'll start off with that display.text. I'm going to make it equal to 0. If it's not already, I'll take that total, set it to be equal to 0. Then I want to take that last symbol and make it equal to an empty string as well. And then the only thing left will be the decimal. And since we're not doing floats, I'm going to skip this one. Let me know down in the comments, what should we replace it with? I don't want to do floats with this. The whole point was to start working with signals and just get some basic functions match and introduce you to some string manipulations that we haven't looked at yet. So I'm going to run it. We'll give it a quick test. 4 times 2, that equals 8, plus 2, 10, divided by 5. Let's do -5. Gives us -2. And then AC, we'll say plus 3 equals 3, minus 5, minus 2. I think we got everything covered. So go ahead, test around, see if there's anything we missed besides the decimal. Let us know down below and we can fix it. Anyway, that's it for this. It's not too bad. Lines of code, under 100. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.